The Secrets of Middle-earth is brought to you by the StarQuest Production Network and is made possible by our many generous patrons. If you'd like to support the podcast, please visit sqpn.com/give.
You're listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth, where we discuss the hidden themes and deeper layers found in the works of J.R.R. Tolkien, whether in his writings or in any of the media derived from them. I'm Jeff Haecker, and today we are discussing the 1978 animated Lord of the Rings film by Ralph Bakshi. And joining me today are our new panelists, Robert King. Hey, Robert.
Hi there.
And Patrick Mason. Hey, Pat.
Howdy, Jeff.
And Rob Leonardi. Hey, Rob.
Hello there.
All right. And before we discuss the film, Robert, since you're joining us, I just wanted to, ask briefly, what is your background with Tolkien, as far as, how long have you been a fan, or just kind of generally, what's your history with the professor?
Yeah, I came to Tolkien at what I consider a relatively late age, which was maybe around 6th or 7th grade. I had, growing up in school, I had several friends who had sort of a D&D club going, and my mother was caught up in the Satanic Panic and wouldn't let me join them, but they kept telling me about this Lord of the Rings thing, and finally got to see not the movie we're going to talk about tonight, but the semi-sequel, the Rankin and Bass Return of the King movie, and then I saw this one sort of second, so it was kind of a weird backwards introduction to Lord of the Rings, but it got me interested enough to read the books, and they were a little tough going, and it was especially disappointing when I got back to my friends and I said, I finally read The Lord of the Rings. It is amazing. It's the most amazing thing. And they were like, oh, well, we've just seen the movies. We haven't read the books. And I'm like, guys, you gotta read the books. They're amazing. And Tolkien has been one of the major influences on just my thinking about life, stories, the universe, everything.
42
from that point on. yes 42. So I mean, largely as an amateur, but when I was in grad school, I pitched the idea of doing my thesis on Flannery O'Connor and J.R.R. Tolkien as two very intentional Catholic authors, intentionally writing their stories from a Catholic point of view, but writing for a secular audience, not writing for a Catholic audience or a Christian audience even, but writing for a secular audience and bringing that sort of Catholic worldview into their work, which is not unique, but it's pretty outstanding to find people who are as articulate about it as they are, as Tolkien is in his letters and in his essays, especially on fairy stories and his essay on Beowulf. And I ended up teaching a class. This was right when the Peter Jackson films were first coming out. And so I ended up teaching a class that was comparing Tolkien's novel to the Peter Jackson films and sort of doing an analysis of if you look at the different ways this story is being told, what can you draw out about the theology of the author or the philosophy of the author, perhaps? And so that approach to storytelling as something that expresses a deep truth in not only in what is being told, but in the manner of telling it. The attention to language and the attention to character details and so on that Tolkien had in his novel paints a different picture of the world than the details that Peter Jackson put into his films and so on. And as I think we'll find, that comes out in Ralph Bakshi's film that we'll be talking about tonight. So, yeah, I get into those details and enjoy sort of pulling them out to find the foundations and the roots beneath them.
Awesome. Well, yeah, definitely welcome to the panel, and looking forward to hearing your thoughts on this film. But before we get there, there was a little bit of news that I wanted to bring up. One was that as we sometimes cover some of the news related to Rings of Power and other things. There's some indications that Rings of Power season 3 will premiere toward the end of this year. So I've just seen a few posts on it. I don't know how true that is, or how accurate that is, but that is something to look forward to. Even if you don't like the show, you can look forward to our discussion of it. All right. And then the other bit of news that we lost Pat momentarily, but there was a story that I think Rob Leonardi, if you wanted to share about who the Dark Blue Wizard might be.
Yeah. So apparently there's some speculation that, we were correct, and the Dark Blue Wizard is not going to be Saruman, but is going to be, I'm going to butcher this name, Palinado?
Yeah. Let's see, what is it?
Palando. That makes more sense.
Yeah.
So he's actually going to be a blue wizard. We hope.
Yeah.
That's the speculation out there. So yeah.
We will see. They're always they've been pretty obvious. So who knows if it will actually be Saruman, or as this film likes to call him, Aruman.
Oh my goodness.
All right. Well, we will go and get into this movie. So just a little bit of background. This film came out in 1978, and it covers the first 2 books, and it does not have a direct follow-up like we were mentioning. It was not marketed as a part 1, so it faced some backlash at the time that it came out, because people thought there was going to be a part 2 of it, and there was not. So or didn't know that this was a part 1, and so they thought they were done, but they come in knowing 2/3 of the story. So
I was a bit disappointed with that.
Yeah, I think I knew that already, so it was something I was kind of expecting. And then as Robert said, there is an animated Return to the King film made by Rankin and Bass, who did the previous Hobbit animated film. So there is a follow-up of sorts, but it's not going to be from the same creative vision. So just a little bit of background, but we can go ahead and get into our impressions or history with the film. So we already got a little bit of yours, Robert, but just overall, what is you said you saw this back when you were in 6th or 7th grade the first time?
I mean, it was probably closer to 8th grade when I saw this, but yeah, it was early, and it frankly just weirded me out on a lot of levels. The animation style, that I didn't have the sort of technical understanding to figure out what was going on. Like I just found a lot of the visuals confusing at that age. Watching it again, I've watched it several times over my adult life, and I watched it again literally earlier this afternoon. And I have a lot more appreciation for the technical ambition of this film. Even at the time, there was a lot of critique about how well it was executed, but the ambition of it is undeniable, and it's an attempt at a kind of filmmaking that really had not been attempted before, and I think probably has rarely been attempted since. So you might even call it an early attempt at something like motion capture.
Yeah, and I have notes on here to discuss that here in a little bit. So
yeah.
What about you, Pat? What is your history with this film, or your impressions if you are a more recent viewer of it?
So the first time I saw the movie was in the long time ago of Saturday. Just a Saturday. Yeah. 2 days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. I can't remember. It's so long since then.
What does Gandalf say in Lord of the Rings? Yeah. The stars wheeled above me while I passed out of time and meaning.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So yeah, not a lot of history with this movie. Didn't really know it existed until honestly fairly recently. I had seen posters of this, right? Because the poster's actually really fantastic. The Lord of the Rings, where they have Gandalf with a sword and sort of this upshot, and it's a very compelling poster. I just didn't realize it went with a movie and wasn't like a book, advertisement. And so this is my first time watching it. It's an interesting adaptation of the two books, like you're trying to cram 2 whole or possibly 4 whole books into a single movie. Typically, most directors have a difficult time doing a single novel into a movie adaptation. So 2 is pretty ambitious. It's very interesting to me to see the parts they chose to spend a lot of time on and the parts they chose not to. I want to say Frodo's fording of the river into Rivendell took up a huge amount of time, just an enormous amount of time. And then on the kind of the other side of the film, the battle at Helm's Deep is like, I don't know, 10 seconds. It's not very long.
A little longer than that, but not much.
Not much. And then there is absolutely nothing about like the battle at Isengard. So you get this merest glimpse of Treebeard. So it's just very interesting to see what the director chose to focus on, highlight, and compare that with the films I had seen earlier, but obviously came later, the Peter Jackson films. And, his very expansiveness of that, with the extended editions running plus 4 hours. And so obviously there's a lot here. And, the rotoscoping was a little rough in some places. I like their interpretation of the Balrog. He's got wings, solid. It's not even like, does he or doesn't he? No, he's very clearly got wings in this one. But I think it's a decent adaptation. It's a good swing at it. You're really swinging for the fences to try and cram 2 novels into a single movie. I mean, usually a movie is good for like a novella. And when you try to put a novel into a movie, you have to cut so much out. So trying to put 2 in was a real tough one. But Gandalf is so different. He is definitely that wizards are strange men version of Gandalf versus sort of the kindly sage that we get in the Peter Jackson films. And I don't necessarily think either is superior, to be honest, but definitely an interesting take on the movies or on the books.
Awesome. And what about you, Rob? What were your I don't think you have a long history with this movie either.
I mean, I have a very long history as of yesterday, just like Pat.
Out of time and space.
I watched this with my whole family, all my kids and everything. Because I was like, it's animated. How horrible could it be? And then I didn't realize that rotoscoping was a thing. And I'm like, what in the world is going on? And then I realized, I have seen some like snippets on, Facebook Reels and things like that of this movie and how, Aragorn trips on his sword.
Yeah.
And talking about rotoscoping, I had no idea what that meant until I watched this movie. But it was very clear that like this movie was a direct inspiration for Peter Jackson. I felt like it followed all of the lines that Peter Jackson followed, but obviously Peter Jackson was able to go more in depth, but he also took scenes directly from this movie, like with the the Nazgul hunching over the tree limb and all the hobbits hiding underneath. So this was clearly an inspiration from him, and a lot of the things that this movie cut, Peter cut himself too. So I don't know if that was just because nobody likes Tom Bombadil, or because
no respect for the Bombadil,
or because they really just felt like that was not necessary as part of the movie. But I don't know. Like I said, when I first saw it, I was like, "Oh, it's animated. It's not too bad." And then I was like, "This is creepy." And but like I had it's creepy. It's still creepy for me, but I have a deep respect for it. Like, this must have took a lot of effort and a lot of work to put this through, and because of that, I highly respect what it is.
Yeah, and just from my impressions in history, I've known about this film for a long time, but I've never watched it. And I've seen like reviews of it and clips of it. So and I've seen, I've watched the Jackson films a million times, and I've read the books. So I know the story, but I didn't know, had never actually sat down and watched this until a few weeks ago. So yeah, it's also relatively fresh for me. And unfortunately, it's not streaming anywhere. For free. I think I rented it on Fandango or something. So,
I got it on my library.
Yeah. So it is available in multiple places, just nothing. You just have to pay extra or rent it from your library. But, but yeah, no, it was definitely an interesting adaptation. And I mean, I'm a Jackson film guy. So, I mean, that's going to be unless someone ever does something better, which I don't think they will, that will be my version of these movies. But
never say never, Jeff.
Yeah, we can always hope for a miniseries or somebody to actually take it up as a TV show.
Yeah, possibly.
Come on, Amazon. Sorry.
Well, based on how they've done Rings of Power,
trust Amazon with it.
Yeah. But yeah, overall, it is very ambitious in what they tried to do. And yeah, we just to explain what rotoscoping is for people who may not know. So if you've seen this movie, and you've probably seen rotoscoping in others, but it's very clear here. But it's basically where they film something in live action, and then they go frame by frame on the film and animate over it. So that's why there are certain scenes like with Aragorn tripping over his sword. It's because that's what happened at the actor, and they just left it in and didn't go back and reshoot it. And that's also why some of the Helm's Deep battle was probably so short, because they had to have people actually doing it, and they didn't have, the budget that Peter Jackson had, or the time to do it. So they probably got one take at it. And from what I understand too, they also used B-roll of some of the extras walking back from lunch or something to animate over. And that's what some of the shots of the orcs marching are. So
okay.
So the rotoscoping is basically animating, and then it also mixes up the visual style a little bit, because you have some of the scenes through in the movie with particularly with the hobbits that are not really, I mean, I think they are rotoscoped and animated over, but they look fairly normal in animation. But then you have some of the battle scenes which are kind of stylized in the way they're animated, and almost like they left some real life stuff in there to make it, either they didn't have the budget to really go back and do that the same way, or they just like the way the stylized version looks. But it's almost like two separate styles in that way in this film, the way it looks. But the intro, and just we can start at the intro. It's a very interesting one as well, because it's not Galadriel telling the story. It's a narration of black figures on a red background, kind of telling you what you need to know to get into this movie. So
yes, especially the fact that it's rotoscoped.
Yes. But what did y'all think of the intro of this movie with that? Because I mean, that's, like I said, where I think we're all used to the Jackson intro of Galadriel's narration. So this is quite a stark difference from that.
I mean, I think it's interesting that he starts with an intro to begin with. Sort of a prologue, and Jackson may have done so influenced by this movie, or may have made that decision separately, but Tolkien very much does not start with the backstory and just brings you right into Bilbo's party and brings you into the story at that level and gives you the backstory as you go. And so I think it's, I think part of it is you have to cram a lot of story into this 2-hour film, and putting an info dump at the beginning is almost a necessity, because people are not going to wait for the Council of Elrond to get everything that's going on. But I thought the sort of, I don't know, it felt like looking through sort of red sackcloth or something to me, at a shadow play or a silhouette play. And I thought that definitely gave a I don't know if I'd say like a fairy tale feel to it, but a kind of, this is a story we're entering into feel to it. It managed to be a kind of once upon a time sort of moment, at least for me. And while at the same time being like, this is really strange and interesting visuals, and I'm not entirely sure what's going on.
Yeah, it is probably good they give you something, though, because in 1978, you probably didn't have as many people as now have read the book. So like you have to give them the story, because otherwise they probably wouldn't know what's going on. So I think it was a necessary choice at the time.
Yeah, I think it's a good way to do show don't tell, right? Because all of this information comes out of the Council of Elrond, but it's just Gandalf or one of the other members saying it, right? And this is a way to actually take those elements and show them. And I like the fact that both this and the Peter Jackson film did it. And granted, this was a little strange, the kind of kabuki style theater going on. But I like the fact that they went with the show don't tell route.
Yeah, I agree with that. It was very necessary because of how, Tolkien just had died, within the decade. And now a lot of people, compared to now, know it. And even now, most people only know it because they've watched the Peter Jackson movies. So they needed something to get in there. And, because I'm weird. The intro reminded me for some reason of the 1965 Roger and Hammerstein's Cinderella. Just kind of the old time live action sort of movements, how they did it on stage. Obviously this was when I was expecting to watch animation, and then I'm watching live action behind a curtain. it just, I don't know. It reminded me of that for some reason. Maybe I'm crazy. But it was something that I think was needed, and it was a good intro to get people to know what to expect for the rest of the movie. Yeah.
But then they do the same thing that Jackson did and really spend a good amount of time, which is, for a 2-hour film, it's a lot of real estate, but they do give the party for Bilbo at least a little bit there. And I don't know if you all have anything in particular to say about the party, but right after that, when it was interesting that Bilbo goes off, and then they actually do say it's 17 years, which I think is that how much it is in the books? It's 17 years, or
33 plus 17 is 50.
Okay.
Yeah. So yes,
I just couldn't remember what the time frame was, but
yeah, I don't know. I personally love the Peter Jackson parts of the Shire and seeing everyone in there and having fun with it all. The couple of, so I think they could have definitely spent some more time in there, but exploring the Shire a little bit. But again, it's a long movie as it is. So you cut where you need to go. There was I liked how they were more to the book than Peter Jackson was, in terms of, yes, it was 17 years. And yes, the way that the party came about was relatively more towards the books than the Peter Jackson. But the one thing I really did not like was when Gandalf got hold of the ring himself. And he held up the ring, and I'm like, what are you doing? Mm-hmm. That's not what should be happening right now.
That got my attention as well, yeah. Well, and I think it's important to say why, because the books make such a big deal about how Gandalf wants to avoid having the direct influence of the ring, and fears it at a deep level because of his own power and the relationship of, in a sense, power to the temptation to power and so on. So
yeah, I thought the two scenes we get with Gandalf in this section, where the first one where he is reminding Bilbo that he needs to give up the ring, rather forcefully in this one versus the other one, and up to the point where he's holding the letter with the ring in it, or the letter envelope with the ring in it, higher than Bilbo can jump. Like, you can't have it anymore. And then the one where he's telling Frodo what it is, it sort of set the tone for who Gandalf is in this movie, and he's a very different creature than he is in the Peter Jackson films. And I think, in my mind, that's one of the biggest contrasts. I mean, there's a lot of them, but I think for character to character, they're very different. They're very different people, but they get to the same place and they get across the same messages. And I think it's always interesting to me to see the different interpretations of characters that filmmakers come up with. Because Gandalf strikes as kind of a crazy old man, and a little cruel, even, especially to poor Sam.
Yeah, and
he did throw Sam onto a table in the Peter Jackson movies.
Yeah, that's true too.
yeah. Well,
reaches out the window and grabs him.
Well, speaking of Sam, I wanted to ask what y'all's thoughts on Sam in this movie, like, because very different portrayal in contrast to the to Sam in the Peter Jackson movies, which is, I mean, those movies are kind of how I view all these characters. Like, when I read the books, I'm seeing these actors in those places. So, you know, I'm always going to see Sean Astin as Sam, but this Sam was very much more of a country bumpkin type of you know, almost cowardly character at first. Which, I mean, I think in Jackson, he's a little bit like that initially, but he's so devoted to Frodo and those that he'll do whatever. But in this one, he definitely starts off a little bit more afraid. But what did y'all think of Sam's portrayal in this movie?
Yeah, it's funny. My daughter, every time Sam talks, she was like, I don't like this Sam.
Mr. Frodo, sir. Yeah.
I honestly grew to like him quite a bit as we went through the movie. I didn't at first, because I do the same thing, right? I have the, Rudy is the, as Sam, and it's hard to get away from that kind of portrayal as Sam, as the maybe not so quite so bright or quick-witted or anything, but stalwart and sort of, you know, a guy you could always depend on, best friend kind of a deal. And this Sam we get is a little more hillbilly-ish, bumpkin, dullard, a little colored that direction. So, you know, more like a linebacker than Rudy was. But I like that I honestly feel like maybe that's a little closer to the book. I think Sam, while being probably one of the best characters from both the book and the movies, the Peter Jackson movies, is supposed to be a little dull, and maybe a little duller than he gets portrayed. And he's pretty rough in this movie, but I actually, the further we got into it, the more I kind of liked it.
You know, with Sam's character arc throughout all three books, I think it's perfectly reasonable to think of him as more of a country bumpkin when he's starting in the Shire than when you have essentially his climax of, on the steps of Mount Doom, and if I can't carry it for you, Mr. Frodo, but I can carry you, and is able to have that climax of and see his entire character arc and his growth, and how I think that Peter Jackson's made him a little harsher than he is in the books, especially towards Gollum. But because he didn't have that ending, I don't think the character was able to be fleshed out as much as it could have been.
I mean, one of the things that's really difficult to get about Sam is the sort of class distinction that Tolkien was assuming between Frodo, who is a country gentleman, and Sam, who is a worker. It's a sort of upstairs downstairs distinction, and so Sam is not educated in the same way that Frodo and Merry and Pippin are, and so he comes across as dull, and I think this film kind of takes that to mean, well, he's just kind of stupid. When what it is that he doesn't have the background, that the education that the other characters have, and he's not quick-witted. So he's not about how quickly he can figure something out, but he is, a very methodical thinker in the book, and he works his way through problems in a way that maybe the more clever characters don't, and he comes to his conclusions with a lot of confidence and a lot he therefore has this sense of I know what I know, and even if it took me a bit longer to get there than some of the others, and so he's solid in his behaviors, whereas in this animation it feels like he's just gonna go either with his feelings or with what somebody smarter tells him, and like you said, Rob, it doesn't give him an arc of development, and that I think was a disappointment to me. A lot of people look at Sam as the hero of the Lord of the Rings, and Tolkien himself even kind of says there's a sense in which Sam is the real hero, and it's hard to see this Sam as heroic, as having the potential for being the hero of the story.
Yeah, the most heroic thing he did, I honestly think it was probably the funniest scene of the movie, was when he got into the boat, and then he's paddling one way and Frodo's paddling the other, and he's paddling one way and Frodo's paddling the other, and I just started busting up laughing at that scene. But that was kind of his climax of this movie, and he could definitely have been. I really wish that they would have made a sequel, a direct sequel to this.
Yeah, I think he would have grown into the Sam, right, that we all know and love, right? I think that was because I think that's the big arc is Frodo sort of falling into the ring and Sam having to take up the slack. Especially when we get to Mordor after Shelob, and then he's got to rescue Frodo, and then he's got to rescue Frodo again, and he has the ring and all that. And I think we don't get any of that because it's in the next book. We didn't get that far.
Well, Shelob, I believe, is actually in Two Towers, the book itself, and that they cut it. Both Peter Jackson and this movie cut it before they got to Shelob.
Yeah,
because the Two Towers cuts the book cuts it right when Sam has the ring and he's trying to go find Frodo. So it's just, again, I think a good parallel with this is almost a direct comparison of what Peter Jackson did too.
Awesome. And yeah, so along with the other with Sam, what did y'all think of the portrayal of the other hobbits? I mean, Merry and Pippin were almost indistinguishable from each other in this movie, whereas in the Jackson movies and in the other films, they're very distinguishable by the things they do or the places they go. But here it's almost, they're just two more hobbits along for the ride, and there's really not much of a distinction between them. So I didn't really have much to say about them necessarily.
I agreed.
Some of the animations of them running with the orcs were a little interesting.
Yeah.
When they're
the biggest distinction was the fool of a took when he dropped the stone down the well.
Yeah.
But other than that, no.
I liked seeing the scene with Grishnak with him searching them actually on film, because I don't remember that from the Lord of the Rings. It may be too long since I read that. But I've read the Two Towers, or since I've seen that movie, I've read the Two Towers recently, and I remember that scene. And they actually did a very good job of translating that to the film. So I really enjoyed that. But like you said, yeah, not much to them. I mean, most of their stuff in the Lord of the Rings is in Return of the King, where they're doing stuff separately because they're literally finally separated.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think it's hard to distinguish the two characters just because of the time of this movie. You know, it's you've got 2 hours and most of their character development comes in, you know, it really kind of comes in their time with Treebeard, and then what follows when they have a chance to kind of stand on their own, as it were.
Mm-hmm. Pledge their loyalties.
Yeah.
And then what do y'all think of Frodo's portrayal in this movie overall, since, you know, he's kind of the main hero, at least for among the hobbits. But how did y'all think he was portrayed? Or was he kind of just kind of a nothing burger, like he's just kind of there to carry the ring and doesn't give much didn't really bring much to it.
Nothing burger is not bad. It's yeah, I liked some of the details that they got about like his sticking his thumbs in his belt when he starts, you know, telling the story at Bree and such. But yeah, as a character, he just felt very flat. And I'm not sure exactly why that was. He felt more one of my critiques of the Peter Jackson films is that Frodo, you know, in the books, Frodo is like thinned and worn down by the ring, and in the Peter Jackson films, it feels more like he's kind of like diluted and watered down, and that's, it feels like it lessens Frodo in that sense. Frodo in this movie, in this animation, is definitely more robust, but it doesn't feel like his character is consistent throughout the movie. Like sometimes he's, you know, the strong protagonist, and sometimes he's like wearied by the ring, and there doesn't seem to be the consistency. You know, at least the Peter Jackson films, it wasn't the Frodo that I knew from the books, but it was a consistent character that carried through. And so I struggled with, yeah, I guess the Frodo as plot device more than Frodo as character in this movie.
And then, yeah, one of the other big changes, at least visually, was for Aragorn.
Oh my gosh.
Movie. He was quite a bit different, you know, darker skinned, and
I mean, this was like the definition of inclusivity before DEI was a thing, where Aragorn was clearly Native American and Boromir was clearly a Norse. And you had Legolas, who was French, possibly, like very, very much of a smattering of things. Even Gimli was like completely different. He's the same height as Legolas.
In some scenes.
Right. Well, yeah. Like, I don't know.
I'm not sure. I would not have gotten Native American from Aragorn, but maybe
there's jokes online on how he's not Aragorn anymore. He's Native Amerigorn.
Interesting. Okay.
Oh, that's terrible. Golly.
Yeah, I don't know. It just he arrives on the scene. He announces who he is right at the very beginning. He already has his broken sword. Like,
well, that's in the books. He has the sword from the beginning, doesn't he?
Yeah,
the broken
books,
sword.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
And he has it forged in Rivendell,
right?
And has it with him from that point on.
Yeah,
like it's not delivered to him at Dunharrow.
Yeah,
it's
right.
He's got it. So
well, I thought
that
he didn't get it until Rivendell, though.
No,
because in Bree he draws it to show them, as he does in this movie, and he shows them it's a broken sword. It's not much of a threat to them.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it was just very interesting to see the diversity of this cast. Yeah. I think there was some scenes like when Aragorn and Legolas were running where it just like was hilariously horribly drawn. But it is what it is, and I think the voice actors were great.
Yeah, I was going to say John Hurt he voiced Aragorn, and I thought he portrayed Aragorn really well in the voice, at least. Just very, very regal, not like the kind of the, like I love Viggo as Aragorn. He is who I see when I see Aragorn, but that, at least in the sense of the voice, it seemed like it was much closer to the book of an Aragorn who knows he's noble and has embraced it. But just the visual design, and not even the skin, but just like, he barely just wearing a tunic and that's it.
This is a man who never misses leg day, and he wants you to know it.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, like, but even Elrond, if you was very, very Roman.
Yes.
Like,
was.
All of these characters, they were just very diverse to me, and I appreciate Leg Day. I appreciate everything that they did for what this movie is. I was just very confused by it all.
Yeah, I did. One thing that I did think was interesting, though, with Aragorn is that he did they took time in this movie for him to tell the story of Beren and Luthien.
Yeah, that was nice.
Which they do hint at in the Jackson movies, but I think in those it's Aragorn singing, and he briefly tells Sam what he's singing about. Whereas this, he's like full on telling the story of the elf maiden, Luthien to Nuviel marrying, with Beren. So I did think that was interesting that they took the time when you have limited time to do that in this movie.
And yet Arwen was not in the movie at all.
Yeah.
Nor Glorfindel.
Yeah, still no
Glorfindel.
No justice for Glorfindel.
Come on.
I saw it was an elf, and I was like, "Oh, it's actually Glorfindel." And then he says Legolas, and I'm like, "Oh, man."
Yeah, I was disappointed too.
And then they just leave Frodo alone on a horse and say, "Good luck." Like
that whole scene, it's such a huge, almost
like they didn't even
piece.
Yeah, it was weird. Like the horse just, hey, I'm just going to dance around here for a bit. Like
there was that extended and maybe this is something to talk about in terms of storytelling, but just in terms of filmmaking, the amount of time that they spent on the sort of Frodo tarrying on the horse with the Black Riders sort of drawing or tempting him to come to them, and then Frodo takes off and the Black Riders are still kind of sort of tarrying there themselves. It's one of the comments I saw was they left very little footage on the cutting room floor. Like they just they used almost everything they shot, and so it felt like one of those moments where it's like, the editing maybe should have trimmed this a little more.
Cut a little bit. So one thing I did like about that scene and the previous scene at near Weathertop was the portrayal of the Wraith world. And not necessarily like how it was portrayed, because I think it could have been animated better, but that it was portrayed and that it was different and otherworldly. And, you know, even my daughter was like, what is going on? Like, what is like, oh, well, he's in the Wraith world. And she's like, well, that's crazy. I'm like, well, it's kind of supposed to be. Like, it's supposed to be the way the ring race interact with the world isn't quite right, because they don't really live in the real world anymore. They live in this alternate side Wraith world that whenever Frodo puts the ring on, that's where he really goes. And I did really like the fact that that was portrayed and done well in the movie. And yeah, I think Jackson makes a go at it with kind of the wind-tornness of the world when Frodo puts the ring on and everything, but it's not quite there. It's like two steps short.
I agree. I really like the sort of abstracted, dreamlike quality that the world takes on when Frodo is being affected by the ring or the Wraith dagger. Yeah, I thought that was done one of the best parts of the Bakshi film. Yeah.
Yeah, and the ring race too were kind of animated and drawn interestingly. Them and the orcs were you know a very different portrayal, I thought, or sort of somewhat different than what we see in the Jackson movies. You have the ring race that are almost more like chimpanzee like a little bit, like when they're searching for or when the hobbits are hiding from the ring race, you see them like kind of hunched over and kind of lanky arms, like kind of
stumbling a bit.
Yeah.
And sniffing, definitely sniffing.
Yeah. So that was I thought an interesting. And then the orcs, as we see later, are almost like which, you know, I don't know what y'all thought of the orc animations and their appearance, but I kind of thought it was an interesting idea to portray them as almost ape-like that. But you don't really get a lot of detail in the orcs. Like you just kind of see the blackness and the red eyes for the most part. And then you get a little bit in some of them, but I don't know what y'all thought about the designs of the orcs and of the ring race.
They're definitely terrifying on a level that
it's the uncanny valley.
I mean, that's part of it. That's definitely part of it. But also there's well, and maybe it's the uncanny valley on a number of levels, because they're both human and inhuman in their portrayal and in the animation, which makes you feel like they're not quite, like there's something not quite right about what you're seeing.
Mm-hmm. My wife was making fun of it, that they all looked like vampires.
Sure. Yeah.
Red eyes and the teeth. Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas, I mean, the Peter Jackson, ring wraiths and orcs are kind of scary, but they're so literally portrayed that it's like, oh yeah, this is a horror trope that I've seen before. It's like, this is a monster that I can recognize, whereas I was never quite sure what I was looking at. And that in itself is freaky and horrific at a different level.
Yeah. And then another, you know, speaking of villains, I thought Saruman, or Ahriman, as he's sometimes called,
Ahriman
it was interesting. Ahriman of many colors, he says, because he's not wearing white all the time. He's got his nice set of red robes there. But what did y'all think of the portrayal of Saruman, or Ahriman, in this?
He had a very big black staff that it just kind of, it looked like he had a bolt of lightning at one point, and it was just kind of confusing for me a little bit. I didn't like how he was portrayed in that sense. I don't like that I don't think they did him justice with Isengard either. We saw him the beginnings of Isengard. We didn't get to the Battle of Isengard at all.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that, again, this was probably another character that we probably could have seen fleshed out a little bit more. Maybe if we would have gotten a sequel, we would have actually had the ending with the Shire and him in the Shire. But I don't know, the whole Isengard thing, and I think it could have been done a little bit better. But at least we saw the Eagles, and they still don't talk. But the Eagles were able to save Gandalf, which is good, and Gandalf didn't even eat a butterfly.
Yeah. I didn't like how they did Orthanc or Isengard at all. I was looking at it and was like, this is Barad-dûr. This isn't Orthanc or Isengard. Just the way they portrayed it in the movie. And then, Saruman, much like Gandalf's portrayal in this, is kind of crazy old manish. It's not as sort of formal or I don't know, royal as his portrayal in the Peter Jackson movies. And so you have this honestly very strange conversation between Gandalf and Saruman that happens. These two crazy old wizards talking to each other. So very different.
Yeah, well, they even kind of portrayed like Theoden like that a little bit. I think, which Theoden was kind of, at least I thought, kind of Middle Eastern. Again with the inclusivity, but they kind of, I don't know, went kind of hard on that route of these are just kind of crazy old wizards, and it was really weird that he when he trapped Gandalf, it was just kind of like the world fell away and he went downstairs. I don't know. I think it could have been done better.
I definitely got the vibe from Ahriman, and I think I like the changing of his name, because one of the difficult things, especially if you're just hearing it, Saruman and Sauron can sound very much alike. And so I think dropping the S is a very simple way of keeping the characters distinct. That worked for me.
Okay.
But what also worked for me was the sense you got that he was struggling to find a way to survive and find victory in a world that was changing. And he saw himself as the clever one who saw the shifting of powers and was going to take advantage of that. He was going to be the one ahead of the curve on this one. And that's very much part of Saruman's character. And I thought that came through really well in this movie.
Yeah, and from what I understand, the reason they changed the name periodically was that they, halfway through, when they recorded as Saruman, they thought the studio thought it's going to be too confusing having Saruman and Sauron, so they wanted to change it, but they didn't have the money to bring the actor back to redub the.
So there are a couple times,
yes, to redub it as Ahriman the whole movie. Redub anyone who said it. So that's why it's I
appreciate making that distinction, because I sometimes get that confused in my head.
And then and then we get the two kind of battles ish, I guess, if you count the one with the first time you meet the Rohirrim in their little standoff with the orcs, which was.
But don't forget the Battle of Moria there.
Well, yeah. That too.
Which I am very sad that Bill got in this one.
Yeah. So are my children. They were like, no, not. And I'm like, he's fine. Don't worry.
Poor old Bill.
Poor old Bill.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, but so, do y'all have any thoughts on Moria or the Balrog before moving on?
That Balrog was very interesting. It was like a mix between a horse and a lion, and with wings. I don't know. That was weird, but clearly another inspiration of giving Balrog's wings.
Yeah, but they rushed through everything so fast that it's hard to and it's been a few weeks since I've watched this, because normally I like to go back and rewatch stuff, but I didn't have the chance. And so I've forgotten a lot of the little details of it, but yeah, I mean, they rush through things so fast that they're also not as memorable. Whereas in, the Jackson movies, it's probably a good 45 minutes or so or more when they're in Moria. And, and it's such a big moment in the movie of Gandalf and the Balrog. And cause you spent so much time, you spent, 2 hours with these people, and then to lose Gandalf,
of all people.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, the Balrog, I think, was a little underwhelming with his portrayal. I think, he was almost as big as Gandalf, which, okay, yeah, they're both Maiars, but I don't know. I think the what Jackson did with his Balrog was a little bit better. With you're facing this giant demon, where regardless if it has wings or not, it's a giant demon.
Yeah.
And I think that this one was just a little bit anticlimactic.
You've got this, if you're going to try and portray this thing in film or on, as an illustration or anything, it's you walk in this balance of how it's described in the book, which is not the sort of giant monster that we get in the Peter Jackson movies, but it also has this very intense presence. And you can tell Gandalf is really shaken up about it. And the other characters are kind of not fully understanding what it is or what's going on. But Gandalf has a very clear understanding. Oh no, I'm facing a first age terror. And the way Jackson does it is by making it this giant team. So its presence is felt by the entire audience. So you have this feeling, the same kind of feeling about it that Gandalf does. But in the books, it's a thinner line than that, because it doesn't really show up as this giant monster. It is sort of this a little bigger than a man in appearance, but has all this smoke and kind of fire billowing off of it. And so it's a tough line to walk.
What was disappointing to me, I think, was that Bakshi did such a good job making, especially the Black Riders, and we've also talked about the orcs, feel like kind of otherworldly in their evil, and in their monstrousness. And the Balrog was much more conventionally animated and didn't have that kind of uncanny valley sort of strangeness to it, and so it just wasn't that scary. I agree. This is an area where Peter Jackson, I think, nailed the feel of the Balrog in a way, even without nailing the literal portrayal from the book. And I think that's an area where Bakshi fell short.
I wonder if he did rotoscope it and just drew over it more. Because you can see,
it feels so much like just a guy in a suit. It really does.
Absolutely. Yeah.
In the movie, this one feels like a guy in a suit.
Just to have this Scooby-Doo gang. Just, hey, who's this?
I would have gotten away with it too if it wasn't for you hobbits.
Old man Maiar.
Now I absolutely want to see a Hanna-Barbera version of the Lord of the Rings.
And Pippin and Mary would be Scooby and Shaggy if they were doing Scooby-Doo.
Yeah. Ruh-roh, Mary.
Always wanting the food.
That's great.
Yeah.
How much white bread did you eat?
Limbasa Scooby snacks. Yeah. So yeah, and then like what I was saying earlier, you had just to move on to the battle with where we first meet the Rohirrim, and they're kind of facing off against the group of orcs. That was a very weird scene because you have like the Rohirrim sending a guy and then the orcs sending a guy, and it's not like the big decisive charge that it is that we see in the Jackson film, where the Rohirrim slaughter the orcs. It's kind of like a very back and forth. I mean, they do eventually, but it's just a very back and forth, like, let's send a guy and I'll send a guy. And I don't know. I don't know if y'all have what y'all make of that scene. And I mean, if they had to cut, kind of make a weird choice there, I think the Helm's Deep battle was a little bit better. And it did look interesting, but yeah, like we said, they cut it so short, but so I don't know if
it was surprising to me that they spent so much time on this, skirmish, and then because it was literally robbing minute for minute from Helm's Deep or the Battle of Isengard or Shaleb's Lair. Like, you had so many other set pieces to get to, so you end up cutting two of those, and Helm's Deep is not, in my mind, not as big as it could have been because of this. And so. And on top of that, like, besides the little part with, the hobbits and the orcs, like, the actual battle doesn't go like it does in the books. And so it's like, why did we spend all of our time here? We could have put a little more into Helm's Deep. For what we got of Helm's Deep, I thought it was good. It was interesting that the Gandalf bringing the people in turns out to be the same group of writers, which is then pushed forward into the Jackson films, right? Because in the books, it's not actually those writers. Those writers are with Theoden because Aemmer's in jail in Edoras when Gandalf shows up. And so all of those writers are there. And so they're already there. The people that Gandalf brings are from the battle at the Fords of the Isen. And, all the people on foot. And so it's a very different kind of scene. And the Huorn get cut out completely, sadly. So I was sad. I was really kind of hoping we'd see the Huorn, because in an animated, it'd be so much easier to do that. But then again, I was not pleased with the depiction of Treebeard.
Yeah, just the way he walked was weird.
Yeah.
It's very strange. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I agree that Helm's Deep just felt rushed, and the action of it was kind of confusing, and I think it was because it was just rushed, and they were trying to get a few moments of action in. But what it kind of pointed out for me was the Bakshi movie really structurally presents Gandalf as the protagonist, as the central character. Gandalf is the hero who saves the day. And I thought that's an interesting choice. I mean, and the Lord of the Rings is a multi-layered story, and you can kind of present lots of different characters as protagonists to it, as the hero of the story. But Gandalf is an interesting choice, and showing him as the one who saves the day at the end of the film, throwing his sword into the air in victory.
Yeah.
And it just disappears.
Yeah.
Goodbye, Glamdring.
As the narration is saying, and so the forces of evil were wiped away from Middle-earth.
Except there's a whole third book that you guys built up to and left behind. Oh, goodness. Yeah, I wonder how much of the battle scenes were as they were specifically because of the rotoscoping, not necessarily because of, limitations of the actors and things like that, but you can only do so many people together and like on the screen without having to be very careful. Like, they would have to be super careful in making sure that these are orcs. These are not orcs. And if you have them all clashing together, it would be so much harder to make that distinction.
Yeah. Well, I think it's that. And I think because if they're, they had a live action people doing this battle, the budget was $4 million back in 1978. I don't know what that is now, but not
with all the inflation that the government has cost.
Gotta be like 78 billion.
But still not, but not huge, not a huge budget. So they probably had very limited, they're probably like, we can do it once. And then we can't do it again because we can't pay the actors.
21.39 million.
Yeah. So
that's the inflation adjusted. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and they wanted to do more. They wanted to do the rest of the story as a sequel or as a trilogy, and the studio just cut them off at a certain point, essentially.
I read somewhere that they actually, when they were doing the live actions, they reached out to him to see if he would do a third one. And he's like, no, nobody told me about the live actions. I'm not doing any more.
Yeah. Yeah. The Ralph Bakshi, he's had an interesting career. If you look up his animating credits, like he's made some weird stuff, and a lot of very adult stuff, we'll say. So it was interesting that this was like the project he wanted to do, and yeah, like we said, unfortunately, it didn't do well enough to merit a direct sequel. But yeah, is it
confirmed that the Return of the King, Rankin and Bass is a quote unquote loose sequel to this for that specific reason?
I don't know. And that's another one I haven't seen either. So that's one we'll have to cover eventually. We can get more into it on that one, but yeah. So just overall, as we kind of start to wrap up here, what did y'all just overall like for what it was, for its limitations? Did it succeed in adapting the material, in its limited way, or did it fall short? So just overall, what did y'all think? Did it succeed or did it fail in that aspect?
I really appreciated the faithfulness to the dialogue that this version had. Almost every line of dialogue was exactly taken from Tolkien, was largely in the context that it was in the books. And I think that gave it gave the dialogue a sort of gravitas that the tone of the movie was kind of up and down. It varied, but the dialogue, the faithfulness to the Tolkien dialogue, really helped tie it together in a way that I think it wouldn't have otherwise. That said, it felt like here are scenes from or episodes from The Lord of the Rings, rather than a full telling of The Lord of the Rings, to me.
Yeah, no, that's a really good way to think about it, is that it's vignettes of, like, here's what's happening in Helm's Deep. Let's take a look. And, you shoot over there and then, we didn't even talk about Gollum really, or, Frodo and Sam and Gollum. But I thought the Gollum portrayal was it's not the Andy Serkis live action, but it was similar in a lot of ways to the Rankin and Bass from The Hobbit.
Well, he wasn't a frog.
Yeah. Yeah.
I appreciate, I really appreciate that. My girl, obviously, my daughter gave me a Gollum stuffed animal for Christmas. Like my girls love my Gollum voice and doing Gollum, and I appreciate how he was portrayed in this. I think that was actually done really well. There's other aspects like Robert was saying where they stuck to the dialogue very faithfully. I think sometimes they, some of the parts that they left out were some of my favorites. And even the things that like Peter Jackson I would say overemphasized for comedic effect, like Legolas and Gimli counting their kills, which happens in the books, but not to the extent as in the Peter Jackson verse. They didn't have that I caught at all. So there was things that I think, yes, they stuck very closely to the book. It was great. They left some things out, but at the same time, there was no dwarf and elf romance. So you take some, you win some, you lose some.
I got it in.
Checks in the mail.
Yep.
What about you, Pat? How do you feel that this film adapted the parts of Fellowship and Two Towers?
Yeah. It's okay. It's there's parts of it I really liked. Things about its interpretation that I liked how it did it. I liked how it portrayed it. The Black Riders, the stuff that happens at Bree, the fording of the river, Rivendell, most of that, not all of it. Even some of the stuff with the orcs, I liked. And some of it I didn't like so much. And honestly, I think when they strayed from the dialogue in the books is where I liked it the least. The conversation with Theoden, when he, brings Theoden back out of his stupor. I didn't like that scene at all. Because it was so different from the books. And you got the basics of it, but not the details. And, the conversation between Gandalf and Saruman, very different from the book. But the Frodo Gollum Sam stuff was all, I feel like, directly out of the book and very well done. And so it has its high points, it has its low points. And the real problem in my mind is it doesn't end, right? There's no there's no Return of the King. And so we're kind of left on this ledge of, maybe a lot of this stuff would have gotten better or been better in hindsight with a part two. So
yeah, I would agree. It was hit or miss, but I mean, I think it's something worth watching if you haven't watched it before. I think it's developed its own kind of cult following, and I wouldn't mind revisiting this from time to time. It's not going to be, the once a year like I do the Jackson films or anything like that. But
is that with the books behind you staring at you, unread for years on end as you watch the movie for the 37th time?
Exactly. Yeah, but I mean, overall, I think it is worth watching, worth checking out. It's it's a curiosity, if nothing else, of part of the the journey to get something in Tolkien, because I think we talked about it in some of the earlier episodes before Pat and Rob were on. There was the first adaptation technically was a guy showing slides to a small audience and making them pay 10 cents so they could say that they saw a Hobbit movie so that he could retain the rights.
Wow.
Yeah. And so, I mean, so going from, so it has a place in the kind of the adaptation history of these books. So, but any final thoughts before we have a little bit of feedback, of course, as usual, but any final thoughts on this movie before we move to the feedback?
I mean, just to follow on what you're saying, I think it's also really interesting for people who are interested in the history of filmmaking, especially the history of animation. It's just even where it fails, it's an ambitious project, and you can you may not enjoy all of it, but you are certainly going to find something to learn and discover in much of this film.
Yeah, I agree, Robert. This film, I think, gave me a whole new respect for filmmakers with what they had to do, both literally live action and animation, and blending those two together. And it was, this is the time of, was it Pete the Dragon, where they had both live action and animated in the same scene? But this was on a different level. And this is definitely not one of my favorite movies. I probably won't be visiting it again, to be perfectly honest, unless it's to like, hey kids, you need a timeout. No.
You have not been traumatized enough. Let me show you some orcs.
But like, I don't like it that much, but it has definitely, like I said, grown a whole newfound respect for filmmakers from it.
What about you, Pat? Any final thoughts?
It's a weird second movie in this strange animated trilogy we have of The Hobbit, The Lord of the Rings, and then The Return of the King, that, none of which fit together perfectly or well, but it's what we've got, right? And it kind of tells the story. So I think every once in a while I'll probably watch all three films, the same way I do with the Peter Jackson films, and not the way I do with the Hobbit films, to be perfectly honest. But I do think, it was an ambitious job. Obviously, we're a long way from Who Framed Roger Rabbit in our ability to do animation and live action on the same thing. But it was, if you want a good look into filmmaking limitations, how to overcome maybe, and how you can fall short when you try to overcome those limitations, this is a very good example.
This would be a good movie to show people in college for film studies.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Awesome. Well, and I kind of already gave my piece, so we can move to our feedback. So on our 100th episode, we had, and I believe all this is from Discord, Eladier said, and the award for the most tortured reference to The Hobbit goes to... I think it was Rob Leonardi.
It was Rob.
Sorry, y'all. I did much better this episode.
Yeah, that was good. It was good.
And then our friend Tammy said, my good fellows, I just had to pause the podcast because I'm laughing so hard. I can't breathe, literally crying laughing. Oh, yes, it is the Mandos Good Time Hillbilly Band of Doom. And then she goes on to say, truly this episode was fantastic. Thank you. I think you covered the period so well and really got to the heart of Sauron. Well, that sounds wrong. I agree so much with what you all said about that one moment. I think it as Sauron's moment of grace, as it were, when he had a pretty clear offer from the Valar to repent and turn back to the light. I debated that moment myself. Was he genuinely thinking about it? Was it a case of imperfect contrition or only deceit? It's a very intriguing thing. And hey, if they're going to make an entire epic film or 3 about the hunt for Gollum, I think that this meeting of Sauron and Eowyn could be fleshed out into at least a TV episode. It does say that he was ashamed, so perhaps there's a smidge of contrition there. And reading this passage always makes me think of the rich young man who asked Jesus what he must do to inherit eternal life, and who ends up going away sadly, unwilling to do what is necessary. Sauron's pride made him turn away. I find Sauron to be more of a satanic figure than Morgoth in a lot of ways, and this is one of those moments. And then she continues, I want to thank all of you for what you do on this 100th episode. I've been listening to the podcast since the Father Roderick days, and I always find it a joy to listen to. I raise a glass to all of you. Thank you for what you do. And then I don't I can't share it on the podcast, but Eladier shared a picture of Mandos on the banjo. So if you go to our Discord,
yes.
you can check that out. And then Mercury I think this was on our Akalabeth episode, said late feedback, but I had to share this thought. We're joking about actually seeing Anarion in Rings of Power, so I hope they don't give him the Wicked Witch of the East treatment. And the only time we see him is 2 feet sticking out from under a rock in the Battle of the Last Alliance. Also a possible theory for Sauron being unable to take fair form after the downfall of Numenor. His goo was washed away.
It was washed into the west.
Yes. My goo was washed away, the autobiography of Sauron. All right.
Well, thank you, Tammy, and I agree with Mercury.
Yep.
All right. Well, I think that is it for this episode of The Secrets of Middle-earth. We'd like to take a moment to thank all of our patrons who make this show possible, including John P., Ann F., Reynold V., Paul P., and Anita H. Their generous donations help us to continue to create The Secrets of Middle-earth and all the shows at StarQuest. And you can join them at GiveStarQuest.com. So yes, that is a change, everyone. It is givestarquest.com is the new site for your patronage. And be sure to follow The Secrets of Middle-earth on Apple Podcasts, YouTube Music, Spotify, or any podcast directory or app. To find previous episodes of The Secrets of Middle-earth and send feedback, please visit sqpn.com. And don't forget that you can get your own official Secrets of Middle-earth merch, including your awesome t-shirt, at sqpn.com/merch. Now, we'd love to hear from you, our listeners. What do you think about the animated Lord of the Rings? You can let us know on our Facebook page or on Twitter, or by sending an email to middleearth@sqpn.com, by leaving us a comment on YouTube or on Spotify, or by visiting our channel on the StarQuest Discord community at sqpn.com/discord. So join us next time as we start the month of February with a very romantic film, our discussion of The Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug, and the beginning of everyone's favorite romance. Until then, thank you, Robert King, for joining me and sharing The Secrets of Middle-earth.
Thanks for having me on.
And Patrick Mason, thank you as well.
You're very welcome.
And Rob Leonardi, thank you too.
Thank you for making me watch this movie.
You're welcome.
Oh, and having me on the podcast.
And I'm Jeff Haecker. Thank you for listening to The Secrets of Middle-earth on StarQuest.
Here's another podcast on the StarQuest Network you're sure to enjoy. The Secrets of Movies and TV Shows. Find it wherever fine podcasts are found or at sqpn.com/secrets.